All righty, and we are live. Sabrina, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Not bad. What is it? 7 p.m. We said, right? 7 hours ahead over there.
It is. It's 7 p.m.
When's the last time you were over here in Texas?
I was there like about 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And you got plans to come back before,
Yes, I do actually. I do. I think I'm going to join the March for Peace with the LULAC.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Cesar Chavez and
Right. That's the 26th, I think.
Yeah, I think 26 or 27. Yeah. And Dolores Huerta is, she's really supporting Melissa right now. So, we're really trying to get, the Latinos out there, to join the movement, join the fight, because, I think Melissa Lucio right now is kind of like a symbol. I mean, aside from, what, you might think or not, her case, the fact that she's poor, she's Latino, and let's face it. I mean, she would probably never be where she's at right now if that wasn't the case.
Right. And for those of you who are joining us, we welcome Sabrina Van Tassel. She is the director, producer, creator, filmmaker, any other accolades you would like to attach to that. Award-winning. I can add that. Is that correct?
Okay, yep. That's okay. I'll take it.
Yeah. She made the film, the documentary called "The State of Texas versus Melissa," which is available on Hulu and other places as well. And she's here to talk about the film a little bit, and as well as some of the Melissa Lucio case. And we may have another guest joining us a little bit later. We're trying to work on that. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll pop them in there. We may not get to it immediately, but we'll definitely come back to any questions as Sabrina is very open to that. Sabrina, hey, so how did this all begin? I know you've been asked this many times already. I'm sure every time you go somewhere, they ask you why. So it wasn't necessarily a film about Melissa where you started. Is that correct?
Absolutely not. No, it was a different project. So I'm an investigative reporter, and I've directed about, I think, 46, 47 films right now. And at the time, in 2017, I was asked to do, for French Network, I was asked to do a documentary about women on death row. And I was looking to interview, women who were on death row. And it just so happened that in Texas, you are allowed to actually interview inmates on death row, which is not really the case in other states. So I asked Melissa, if she wanted to be interviewed. I asked like all the women, and there's two women who replied, and one of them was Melissa, and she was okay. Really at the time, I've said it many times, but it's true. I mean, I didn't know if I wanted to cover her case because, really it didn't seem like such an interesting case to me. Really. I mean, it was, a child abuse case. It seemed like on paper, it seemed like a very simple case.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. It seemed like a very simple case. It seemed like there wasn't really much to say about the case. And also it was like there was very little that had been written about it. So I was like, okay, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? But at the last minute, I decided to cover it. And that's really how it began. And little did I know that, 4 years later, I would still be here talking about it, and that I would have, done actually just an entire feature about Melissa Lucio, and I would still be here, talking about it and fighting for her life, really.
Yeah, and it's something that, and it's been said before, and it's very true that even though this was the death of a child, and at the time was considered, it was she murdered the child. It didn't get much coverage down here. There's a lot of people who really didn't know about it even until very recently.
And that's very surprising. and that's one of the first thing that raised flags to me, right? I mean, it was like, this is a death row case, and there's just like what? There was 2 articles on the Morning Valley Stars. I mean, not really much. I mean, it was really local. And the other thing that was surprising is that usually when you have a child abuse case, you don't end up on death row, okay? So
Right.
that was
Yeah.
also something that was kind of, it was just like, really, I mean, usually you'll get life without parole or something like that, or you'll get injury to a child, So it was just really surprising to me.
Yeah, and what was the initial reaction when you started poking around and people started to hear that you were a filmmaker, not necessarily, with law enforcement or with the attorneys or anything like that? Were people still forthcoming and trying to help you out with giving evidence?
Because the thing is, I mean, people actually, the reaction was like, why are you interested in that case? I mean, why her?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like as if, Melissa was a nobody. And so basically, her life didn't really matter much. That's what I felt.
Mm.
And, I would say to people, why not her? I mean, why would I not be interested in her case? I mean, the thing that really happened was that when I came down to Harlingen,
Yeah.
and I met, her family, immediately they started telling me about all kinds of weird things, right? They started telling me about, a DA being in prison, a court-appointed attorney that went to work for the DA, an accident, possibly another daughter hurting the child. I mean, it just like I was hearing a lot of different, like a lot of information, and I was just like, what? I mean, what is this? And so when my first reaction was to really check the information. I mean, was the DA really in prison? Yes, he was. Actually, I think
Yes.
he just get out, or
He's
so
out under supervision or whatever they want to call that.
exactly.
It's not quite house arrest, but it's supervision.
And he got 13 years, and 13 years is, I don't know if people realize that, but it's a huge amount for an elected official. It's really crazy. So I was just like, really, I mean, this is really bizarre. And then I started, kind of digging, and yes, I found out that, the court-appointed attorney was working for the DA now, and had gone to work for the DA, and possibly had agreed to go work for the DA during Melissa's case,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was just really, and that apparently it was his first case, his first capital case. So I was like, wow. So that's really how it started. And then it was just really meeting Melissa that, I was just like, yeah, there's something really wrong in this picture. I mean, there was just something that didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And talking to her lawyer at the time.
What was her reaction when you first spoke with Melissa, and when it got to the point where you said, "You know what, I want to do this"? What was her reaction to you?
Well, Melissa was surprised at the time that I would get interested in her case, because she was really all alone at that time. I mean, her family lived lived far away, and she was really. She was not, attracting any media attention whatsoever. So she was happy to, that a reporter, a journalist, filmmaker, whatever, would be interested in her case, and she enjoyed, the conversation, and basically telling me, how, her point of view, how it went for her. And then when I spoke to Margaret Schmucker, who was her attorney at the time, and she started like really sending me all the files, like, everything, her entire case basically. And we started exchanging a lot of letters with Melissa, where, back and forth, like where I would ask her a lot of questions. And immediately she said yes. Immediately she said, okay, we got a connection. And And so immediately I started, investigating her case, and she was just all for it.
Mhm.
Like someone who shut up so many years, right? And all of a sudden, the can opens and she wants to tell me everything about her case. She wants to explain to me everything that went wrong. And really, I often say that everything that could have possibly gone wrong in a case went wrong in Melissa's case. I mean, everything.
Yeah, definitely. When my first reaction was, and correct me if I'm wrong, she seemed very, I think the attorney Gilman referred to her as docile, kind of quiet, and not very outspoken. And you think getting a chance to meet with someone like yourself who may want to, investigate some more, she'd be a little more, I don't know, more happy or more, yes, just, I don't know, just, I would imagine her demeanor would change, but I didn't get that feeling. Is that just how she is, you think? Or is she
What do you mean exactly? You mean that she's I don't really understand your question.
I guess maybe, I don't know. Do you think she has just accepted the fact that she was going to be on death row and that date would come and that's it? It didn't seem maybe she was. And I could be completely wrong about her.
Probably. I mean, it's true that, Melissa is someone, I mean, she's not a troublemaker. Okay. She's someone who gets along with the other, inmates. The wardens like her at the prison. She's a very easy person. I mean, hate to say this, but, for like some people might be surprised, but she's a very likable person. I mean, she's very calm. She has a tendency to take the blame for herself. So, that's the kind of person that she is. And she's very articulate at the same time. Mm. And very clear. And her story never changes. And that's what I look, right? When I do something, especially a case like this, I'm trying to see if people's story change.
Right.
And one thing that I can tell you is that, you can't lie for such a large amount of years. Okay. And I definitely know how to interview people and how to basically trick them, if you will, whatever. And her story's been consistent all these years. She's never changed. She's never changed it. And I read everything.
Yeah. How much is there? Yeah. How much is there?
To go back to your question, I mean, Melissa, has found God, and there's nothing. I mean, she's not a violent person. She's not an angry person. So she was kind of like, in a way ready to die, even though she doesn't want to die, but like, kind of like accepting her fate because she has no other way.
Yeah, because it was said somewhere, somebody mentioned it, I think it was in your documentary, that she's been violent and she's fought with other inmates and she was a troublemaker. And, was there any truth to that at all? Where did that come from?
Well, you need to find it for me, because really, I mean, that's the first that I've heard of it. I mean, there was a case where they found a tattoo machine in the Cameron County Jail where all the women were staying, and nobody said that, it was nobody basically took the blame for the tattoo machine, so they were all blamed. That's the only thing. Does that make her a violent person? I don't think so. And plus, it was never really, said that she has anything to do with it. I mean, really, that's just crazy.
So you get this evidence, or copies of it, and you're reading. I'm sure you're reading tons and tons. When do you start to see that something is obviously wrong? There's a major problem.
Okay, so I read about 3,000 to 4,000 pages of CPS records, Child Protective Services. And I see that in all the years that she was monitored, because she was poor and she had a lot of children and she had a drug addiction. So, they were basically making sure, I mean, she had CPS on her back all the time. And she was never violent to any of the children, never. Okay. So I was just like, wow, that's really bizarre, because usually you don't become violent from one day to the other, right? You have a tendency to be. And you certainly don't become violent after you have 12 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, you maybe you're going to lose your patience a little bit before that. I'm just saying, I mean, I have kids. I mean, you know how it, and I've done, other films about child abuse. And usually, I mean, people always have a story.
Yeah.
The idea that, somebody snaps is just completely, couldn't be further from the truth. That's not the way it happens.
Yeah.
You have a past, you have a violent nature, or you're not, or you don't have it. And, surely, I mean, if she was violent, you would have found it somewhere. And she was not. So I could establish that she had never been violent to her children. Actually, she had a tendency to be too lenient. She was someone who didn't monitor her kids enough. And that was on the CPS files, that, the kids would be running around and, whatever. And I could also establish that she had never been violent to adults either. So that, I was like, okay. And then I started just really investigating the case and trying to see who had seen her being abusive. And there's not one witness, not one in the entire case. Not one.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you have a death row case here where the person on death row doesn't have a single witness, not one.
And there was
I mean,
I'm
just a little surprised here. So, all of a sudden I'm just like, what?
Yeah, and it was always crowded. There were a lot of children and people around most of the time.
At the time when she got Mariah back, because the kids had gone to foster care for about 2 years. When Mariah was born, all of a sudden she gets the children back in October 2006. Okay, and Mariah is going to die she gets them back in November 2006, and Mariah dies on February 17th, 2007. Okay, so she only had Mariah 4 months, right? When she gets them back, there are so she lives with her common law husband, at the time, and she has 9 children in the home, in a 2-bedroom apartment. And a lot of the children are teenagers, right? I mean, there's a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, everything. I think 10, 11, 7, I mean, just every single age.
Right.
And then you have the adult children who are constantly there. And how do I know that? I know that because of CPS records, because sometimes, some of the children are not allowed to live there, or even the tenants are basically reporting. They're reporting it to CPS saying, well, we said, okay, for 9 kids, but, the daughter who's 18, she's always there. And the one who's 17, she comes, once in a while. And, there's also a brother who's like 18, 19, and he's very often there. So you find that all that, you can find it in the CPS records.
Yeah.
And so that was a very crowded house. And none of those kids at the time said anything about it. Okay. So I was just like, okay, that's really, really bizarre. And no neighbors. I mean, nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. So basically they find a dead child, and they immediately think it's the mom. It can't be anybody else,
Yeah.
And they basically force her confession. That's what they had in mind when they arrested her. Unfortunately, that's very common. Okay,
Yeah.
so you get arrested by police officers, and they already have something in their mind, right? They've already decided that, you're guilty. And in Melissa's case, I mean, because of the way she is, she's not someone who screams, and she's not a dramatic, person. She's someone who, because she was a victim of abuse her entire life. I mean, she was sexually molested for years when she was a child. And then every single one of her husband was very violent towards her. So she's someone who shuts down and doesn't say anything anymore. So immediately when the police arrest her, they're like, she's not crying enough. She doesn't look like she's affected enough. I mean, they basically say, okay, that's it. She's the mom, she's guilty.
Right.
And they're
by
basically
default.
that's it. It's her fault.
Yeah.
It's her fault. And basically her confession, I mean, you've seen probably in the film, how, the Rangers and all those police officers all night long.
Yeah.
After she lost her child, I mean, after her child died, and she had been up that day at 5 a.m. So this is like, she hadn't had anything to eat or drink. She's not requesting a lawyer because for poor people who don't have anything to do, who don't know anything about the justice system, their first instinct is not to say, you know what, get me a lawyer. I mean, Melissa was super poor. So, and she never had anything to do, with the law before. So, she said, sure, I'll answer your questions. And that's the very first mistake she made.
Yeah, it's and that is very common for them to just, people don't understand. Some people do admit to guilt or some sort of, I was part of that, but it's not really a true confession. It's more of they just want to get out of there. They want to get something to eat. They want to go. They just want it to stop. And detectives, police officers, investigators are just relentless trying to get an answer one way or another. That they sometimes I don't think that they realize that they're being a little overboard. And there's generally speaking, police and detectives are good, and I do support them 100%. Every once in a while, you get some that just go a little too far, and I don't think that was. I don't think she should have said she was guilty, or yes, I did it, but we don't know.
Well, she didn't say she didn't. She basically.
Well, she said that she
did it.
Yeah.
I guess I did it, but you'd be surprised the amount of people who were exonerated, who actually confessed to something they didn't do. Actually, about 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from a man called Christopher Ochoa. He was not on death row, but he was actually sentenced for he was serving like life for capital murder, and he was there for 9 years. And he not only confessed to something he didn't do, but he accused somebody else who had nothing to do with it. That person was actually his, accomplice. And the actual murderer, said the truth. He was, he got arrested and he said, you know what, I'm the one. I'm the one.
Oh.
So all of a sudden they realized that there are two people serving life. One admitted to something he didn't do and pointed out at somebody else who had nothing to do with it. And he called me and he said, how can I help you? How can I help you? Wow. So you would be surprised at the amount of people who actually, acquiesce to things that they never did.
Right.
So those methods anyway, the Innocence Project, they're all about it. They talk about it all the time. They don't work. The amount of people who supposedly admit, and all of it, and after, they try to retract themselves because, it's just not, thinking that from a person's, demeanor, if they're guilty or not is crazy.
Yes. Agreed. I just want to pop a couple of these up here. What is the exact state of the case right now? That's what they are working towards, trying to get somebody to look at some additional evidence or have the date at least stopped and let's look at this? Is that what it is?
Okay, so no, the death date is set, and that's on April 27th.
Right.
Now the lawyers are filing motions after motions after motions, trying to stop that and trying to show everything that wasn't shown. Because, people might, from an outside perspective, they're thinking, oh, well, she had what, 6 or 7 or 8 appeals, and she's still there and she's still got an execution date.
Right.
But that's just not the way it goes, right? I mean, really, the only time that you can prove that you can show new evidence is right after the trial. So she got sentenced in 2007. She would have gotten her, like, I think, habeas writ, which was in 2008. And since then, all those appeals are strictly procedure appeals, where she could never actually bring new evidence. And none of the lawyers could have done that.
So those are not appeals, what are commonly known as appeals,
No.
Please let me show this because I didn't do it, that kind of thing.
You're not allowed actually to show it. You're not allowed to bring anything. You're not going to hear it. They just want to know if, the procedure went well, yes or no. Yeah. And actually, in Melissa's case, it didn't go well, right? Yeah. She won her appeal in 2019 unanimously, based on the fact that she did not have a fair trial, based on the fact that she did not have experts on her side. See, I mean, you have the state, right? They're bringing all kinds of evidence against you, and you're supposed to have a defense, and you're supposed to have your own experts who are going to argue what the state is saying. Melissa didn't get that. Melissa did not get that. I want people to realize that she had a 4-day trial where there were maybe the state, the DA's office, they brought maybe like 20, 25 people against her. And she probably had 4 or 5 testifying on her behalf. One of them was her sister. None of her children were allowed to testify. Not even the adults.
Yeah, I caught that.
None of her neighbors. Nobody in her family. Nobody who actually knew her. And no experts. No medical expert.
Right. So the video says, Gilman says, I didn't think it was a good idea. There were little kids. They were going to be running around. He made it sound like they were going to be at a circus or something. That I don't want to anger the jury. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how ridiculous
Peter Gilman thinks that these kids were animals.
Yeah.
And but he thinks the entire, it's pretty clear. I mean, I interviewed him for an hour. I mean, his disdain and, he thinks that, her family, just these people in general, they're animals basically. And, he wasn't dealing. It seemed to me like he wasn't really dealing with human beings, really.
Yeah.
As if those children would have, disrupted the jury. And then, that's just really crazy.
Another quick one here. Was CPS involved before that? Was there a history of CPS?
Yes, there was. Yeah. There was a history of CPS. Again, because, Melissa had a huge family. She had a lot of children. And she was monitored by CPS. They wanted to know where she was living, because, usually, the apartments were not big enough for the kids, or, the water would be, turned off, or, things like that. There are CPS records where, the children are kind of running around and, and they're not really being watched. That kind of case, really. That was why CPS was always there. They would, do random visits and, make sure that, the kids, were well treated, had enough to eat. They always had enough to eat, that's for sure. But it was basically that everything was under control. And so that's why CPS was involved. And so when the children were actually taken from Melissa, it wasn't because of violence whatsoever. It was because, Melissa, was found to be negligent. She was found to, she had a drug problem.
Yeah.
She actually, she actually worked on that. And that's how she got her children back.
It's been said that How many people did you interview from her family for this?
Oh my God.
I
So
guess including her kids.
I interviewed one, two. So I interviewed John, Melissa, Daniela, Selena, Richard, Alexandra, and Bobby. So that's 7 of her children. And I interviewed a lot of her neighbors. I interviewed one of, her partner at the time, Robert Alvarez. I interviewed the lawyer. I interviewed a lot of people. I mean, I actually have so much footage that I could really do some kind of, mini series. At some point, I really had to make a choice. And again, I was really looking for, telling the story in like in an hour and a half, and focusing on those who had never changed their story. I mean, that was a very important part.
Yeah, and that brings up my next question was, Selena has been on TikTok a lot and social media talking about this, and she said her segment of the interview was never shown, and she's complaining why wasn't her interview. So people are asking, why was her segment not shown in your documentary?
Well, to answer her question, I actually released some of her footage, and the reason why I didn't put it, there was because she doesn't make any sense. She keeps changing her stories all the time. When I asked her, the very first time that I spoke to her, I asked her, was your mother abusive? She says no. And then, I interview her, and you can actually hear me, in the interview. And I ask her, was your mother abusive? And she answers, I think so. I mean, she was 15 at the time. I mean, either so or you don't, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think so. What kind of an answer is that? And then she starts telling me that, she doesn't really know because, she doesn't know if it's her memory or other people telling her. I mean, I'm just like, what are you talking about? And then, she basically tells me, so I asked her, I'm like, okay, your mom's, accused of child abuse. Did you see her punch her or slap her? Answer is no. I think I asked her 3-4 times. She said no every single time. And then she's like, but she was abusive because she would pinch her, or she would put her in the corner, or she was asked to be, underneath the bed, or she would be put underneath the bed, which, by the way, I mean, they had mattresses on the floor, so I really don't see, how that could be. And then she said to me, and when I was interviewed at the police station, I'm pretty sure I talked about the accident. And now on her TikToks, she keeps saying that, well, yes, she did say that, but because her mother had asked her to say that, Mariah had fallen down the stairs. So yes, she did say that to the cops, but, that was because her mom had asked her to do that, right? Or to say that. And of course, there's a slight problem with these allegations, is that she was never interrogated at the police station.
Yeah, never at all. Never at all.
No, that never happened. That's very easy.
She said she was, but
she was never interviewed at the police station. So she basically tells me, I was at the police station, and I'm pretty sure I said Mariah fell down the stairs, and I think there was a black lady there, and of course, I checked that, and there was just never any black ladies at Harlingen PD at the time. But at the same time, I checked the police records, and Selena was never interviewed by the police.
Wow, look at that.
Right. Okay. So I'm an investigative reporter. I try to, and this is a very grave matter, right? There's a woman on death row.
Yeah.
I'm not going to air, something that, one of her children is saying, what I know it's not true, because I can check it, right? So I checked that she was never interviewed at the police station. That's a fact. Okay. She basically tells me that her mom is abusive because, she's pinching her or, putting her at the corner. I mean, is that abuse? I mean, are we serious here? I mean, that certainly does not explain those bruises, right? And then she basically says that, her mom was never slapping her and never punching her. And now she goes on TikTok and she says the opposite, right? So the thing is with Selena and with everything, I mean, I found letters from her, that she sent her stepdad while he was in prison, where she basically says that, she wished she could have testified for her mother because, she knew she wasn't abusive. I have a lot of things about what Selena is saying, and Selena keeps contradicting herself all the time. The thing is, I think that she doesn't even remember what she said to me in her interview. I think she was in shock when she basically saw her footage. So now her big thing is, oh, it's edited. No, Selena, it's not. I mean, it's just not edited. And you don't need to see an hour interview, stating what? What do you think you said? The problem is that she lies all the time. So she doesn't remember what she says.
And you said that she was actually trying to purchase footage or purchase your content.
Yeah, apparently, yeah, she wanted to purchase the footage. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And for me, what speaks volumes is that I mean, your mother has an execution date, and all you think about is actually going on TikTok and trying to make yourself famous out of that situation. And basically saying what? Oh, kill my mom? No. Oh, she's not saying that. She doesn't want her mom killed. But then she's saying she was abusive. And she's saying, I'm basically lying, or, I'm trying to tell, that her story didn't fit the narrative. No, I mean, let's be straight. I mean, her interview was basically an hour of her crying about the things she didn't have when she was growing up, or, the SpongeBob t-shirt that they used.
Yeah.
How, she actually had a nice, she actually was happy then, with all her brothers and sisters. And, she thinks she was happy then because she was basically in a neighborhood where everybody else was poor. But now thinking about it, she wasn't. Now she realizes she wasn't. I mean, she went on and on in the interview about, it was all about me in my life, right? And her life.
Yeah.
But she never talked about Mariah. She never talked about her sister. She never once told me that she missed her sister, or she wished she would have known her sister. Or actually, that was really surprising to me. And so, yes, she wants to apparently buy the footage. So the footage not for sale. The footage actually is going to the lawyers, and the footage is actually going to, to be new evidence, really, from everything that wasn't seen in the documentary. But one thing I have to say to her, though, is that if she wants to do a GoFundMe, she probably should have done a GoFundMe for her little sister's headstone.
Yep,
right?
that was coming up next. Was she wants to do a GoFundMe to get film content, yet it's, as of right now, I believe the child that's buried, there is no headstone,
There's
even
no
a marker. It's not even a marker.
There's nothing. There's nothing at all.
Yeah.
And that's very shocking to me. And so all of a sudden, there's justice for Mariah. 15 years later, we're talking about girls who now are like in their 30s or late 20s.
Yeah. So you said that they did not know where the child was buried, but when in your footage they're standing over some grave site. Is that?
Well, I was in shock because when I got there, we didn't know where she was buried, or they thought she was buried, and but so I actually filmed another grave. Well, it wasn't even a grave, it was just like like some flowers or a little angel.
Oh, okay.
because I would have had to, it's not even explainable. I mean, how do you explain that 15 years later, I mean, the stepdad, the father, I mean, was released from prison, in 20, 2012 or something like that, even before that, maybe. He only served 4 years. So I'm just surprised that the father in all those years, has never, put a headstone for his daughter, and that none of the children basically found it in their heart to go and put do they even know where Mariah is buried? I mean, that's my question.
Yeah.
But if she wants to do a GoFundMe, for my footage, she'd better, have done a GoFundMe years ago for her little sister. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So do we know if there is any fund that you know of as of right now? There is something being put together now?
Yes, she's correct. Mary says, she states that John has the GoFundMe for the headstone. So John was out of the picture for years because unfortunately he was locked up. And John had always been very close to Mariah. He loved Mariah, and Mariah loved him. And so John is the older brother. And the first thing that he did was to basically, get a headstone for. So he's getting that organized right now. This is actually being done right now. And yes, I'm pretty sure he did a GoFundMe for the headstone. I have to double check, but I mean, I know he's taking care of it.
So let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about this accident or the staircase. And it's been said that she just wandered off and she fell and just went down the stairs. And then it's also been argued that one of the other kids hit her or kind of pushed her down the stairs. And then we bring up the conversation with Alexandra. So most who can watch this documentary will see that interview of Alexandra with the footage that you have of Melissa. And what I took from it was Alexandra has something to do with it. Mom is covering for that, and never thinking this was going to be a death penalty case.
I think you're not far from the truth, really. I mean, if there was somebody abusive in that house, it was Alexandra for sure. I say that because I interviewed 8 different people who pointed fingers at Alexandra. And most of them, I mean, are not in the film. So that was something that, came back. I know that the lawyers knew about allegations that, Alexandra was not nice with Mariah, at least. There's 2 different, 2 private investigators who didn't know each other, 3-4 years apart, who basically state, both of them, that, Alexandra kind of said to them that she had something to do with it, that she would actually, she didn't like her. She would actually, hit her. And then, of course, there's the family, and there are a couple of kids who say it too. So, I mean, all that being said, at the time when I was doing the film, I mean, one thing that I knew for a fact was that Melissa had talked about a fall down the stairs. She had talked about a fall down the stairs to her husband. She had talked to a fall down the stairs to a few of her children. She talked about that to John. She talked about that to Daniela. So basically, I mean, the fall down the stairs was really something that, had happened 48 hours prior. And there are 2 young kids, 2 young brothers who stayed in the Maggie's House interview that, they saw their little sister fall down a flight of stairs. Yeah. Now, could they have been coached by their mother, to say something like this? Absolutely not. I mean, Melissa was arrested right away. I mean, I have the timetable there. And she said to most people that Mariah had fallen down the flight of stairs 48 hours prior to her arrest. And she had no idea. She could not have known that Mariah would have died from it. So Do I think that she's lying about that? Absolutely not. Could the blunt head trauma that Mariah suffered be a result of a fall down the stairs? Absolutely.
So did Mariah, Danielle, was it Daniela? I think Daniela was talking about she was playing with Mariah and then it was time for bed. She laid her down and then she never woke up. Is that how that happened?
That was Bobby who talked about that, and
Okay.
that's basically what I found out is that they didn't see the signs. And again, all the blame is on Melissa, okay, because she's the mom, and so she's responsible, right? I mean, just as you know, mothers are responsible for everything. But there was also a dad there, and there are also a lot of children, and there are also teenagers there. And she was not well for 48 hours, and none of them took her to the hospital either. So Melissa didn't see the signs, but she didn't see the signs. I mean, she was getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about it. And when she was going to take her to the hospital, basically, is when she died. So she did not realize it was that bad. Also, I need to talk about something is that, in order to have a blunt head trauma, I mean, you don't need to fall from a 2-story building.
Right. Yeah.
Even a slight fall would do. We have examples of kids who fell from a swing, and the parents didn't see really the sign, and they died. The next day or even a couple of hours later. That's actually what happened to Bob Saget.
We're about to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't slam his head on the concrete. They say he knocked his head on something that we just, oh, damn, why did I do that? Or,
Yeah. Especially when you're 2.5, and Mariah had fallen prior to falling down the stairs. I mean, she had fallen while she was in foster care. There are reports that she's actually that she lost consciousness. I mean, her feet were turned in, so she needed to have special shoes, so she would trip, and she would injure herself a lot. And so while she's in foster care, she is basically at a daycare center, and she's falling from like a couple of steps, and she loses consciousness, and she's brought at the hospital, and that's like approximately 6 months prior to the fall. So it wasn't her first fall. It wasn't the first time that she had lost consciousness. She was a child that, and I don't even know if Melissa knew that. If Melissa knew at the time that Mariah had fallen downstairs, at the time and had lost consciousness. So it wasn't the first time. And the bruising could be a result from something called DIC, which is coagulopathy, which basically is you're dying and the blood's not clotting anymore, and all of a sudden you starts developing like all kinds of bruises all over. And if you check, even a Google check, you will see if you type DIC blunt head trauma, you have a third of blunt head traumas who end up in DIC. And DIC is something very common. That means you're dying. It means you're dying. So, that is something that could have been brought up, had she had a medical expert. It's definitely being brought up right now by Innocence Project and, all kinds of different experts who can actually show that. Now, do I think that, someone pushed her down those stairs? I don't have the answer to that. And, that's not my job, frankly. Do I think that,
do you think that
Alexandra? Do I think that, I mean, you know what? I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I mean, I didn't, before, Selena and Alexandra started going on TikTok and going crazy, I never thought that.
Yeah.
The fact that all of a sudden, they're just, want their mom to die so badly, raises questions in my head. I'm just like,
Hmm.
Why is that? You know, do they
Yeah.
feel guilty about something? Is there something that, I mean, that's basically what I'm thinking is like, why? Why? Why do you want your mom to die so badly? I mean, why? I mean, especially when even if her sentence was reversed right now, she'd probably spend her entire life in prison. I mean, it would be hard for her to get out.
Hmm.
So, I mean, of course, I hope that's not going to happen. I hope she's not going to be executed, with all my heart, and I hope that she will be free. I hope we'll be able to prove that. But when you see other death row cases that were, basically reversed right before the execution, usually they end up spending life without parole.
Right.
So, there's really no reason for that, except maybe that, those two sisters have something to hide,
Yeah.
something they're not proud of. And, they really think, they maybe think that, if the mother gets killed, everything's going to be okay for them.
Right. Secrets
Of
are
course,
covered up.
yeah, of course, there's no statute of limitation in Texas. So thinking something like this is just crazy. I don't have the answer. I don't know what happened. But all I can say is that, it's all over this case. And I was told of Alexandra's abuse the first day I got there, and the first day I actually investigated Melissa's case, and it's all over the case.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not something that I brought up. So I strictly talked about what was in the case, what was in the files in my documentary. That's what I said. That's what I decided to do. I decided to show everything that was there that was never shown to the jury.
Yeah. And my thoughts on Alexandra was, even though she clearly stated she didn't like her, she didn't feel an attachment to her, to Mariah. My thought was, well, maybe she hit her, or in a moment of whatever you want to call it, not necessarily meaning to kill her. Oh, I'm going to push her and let her fall down. It'll be funny, or I don't like her. Let me trip her or something. But then that injury came up, and that's, what are the chances that, from what if you've talked to the attorneys, I mean, thinking way ahead, what are the chances that she would be brought up on some charges if all this was reopened again and looked at? Is that even, would that be a possibility?
It is. It could be. I don't have the answer to that. I mean, and I can't talk for the lawyers really, but it is. I mean, could it be brought up as new evidence? Absolutely. I know that wasn't really something that, the lawyers wanted, or anybody wanted to do,
Yeah. Yeah, I think Gilman's comment was he didn't want to ruin a young person's life.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alexandra, even though
Yeah.
his
I
mom
mean,
was,
you have to realize that at the time, that would have meant a completely different story for Melissa. I mean,
yeah,
that trial would have stopped right there. All of a sudden, it's not, a death case, it's not a death row case anymore. All of a sudden, it's not capital murder anymore. At the time, she was a minor. I mean, Alexandra was a minor. So, I mean, there was, a lot of things. There were so many things that, had Gilman brought it up at the time,
yeah,
that would have, changed just everything for this case.
yeah,
He would have brought up the accident. He would have brought up the children who stated, that Mariah fell down the stairs. He would have brought up even maybe Alexandra. Was she mean with her? Did she not like her? Maybe, she didn't do much. I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, he would have brought up all these things to the jury, and all of a sudden, since, our justice system is based on reasonable doubt, there would have been reasonable doubt, right?
yeah.
And probably she would have had injury to a child, neglect.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
or injury to a child by omission, and she would have spent, from 5 to 10 years in prison, like her husband did, and that would have been the end of this story. And then this family would not be destroyed today.
Right.
But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. At the time, there was Armando Villalobos, and the DA, was in trouble. He was known for taking money from the rich and getting them, getting them out
Favorable
of prison.
results.
And basically, yeah, exactly. And basically, he would target the poor, and the poor would end up on death row. And actually, at the time, Melissa wasn't the only death row case. There were many death row cases. Another one was Manuel Velez, who's out today, thank God. And he was sentenced to death for also killing a child. And it was the same DA and the same forensic expert. Oh, and by the way, that forensic expert in the film is being sued today by another family. Okay, so I mean, she's just also, is someone who basically writes everything the states wants to hear.
Yeah.
So in this case, really, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And basically, Manuel Velez, he was saved by the ACLU, and he spent, I think, 9 years on death row for nothing. So Armando Villalobos, he was known for that, and he had been he was basically being pointed out, by the media, because he had let a murderer, a serial killer, actually get out. Who had just been sentenced to death to life. Get out to get his affairs in order. And he basically fled the country. And we realized that, he got money for that. So there were fingers, pointing at him, and, and all of a sudden he finds, Melissa, and, oh, this is great. Let me sentence to death, the first Latina in Texas.
Yeah.
And he basically used her case. Now, of course, you have all kinds of questions being raised now. You have Peter Gilman, who now works for him, right?
Yeah.
And it's probable that he decided to go work for the DA during Melissa's trial. I mean, those are things that are being said right now. I mean, he certainly didn't bring up anything that he had. I mean, nothing. Why would you not bring the children? Why would you, not bring the Alexandra thing, a problem? Why would you not bring anything to the case at all? Why would you let your children, what would you let your client, end up on death row the way he did?
Yeah. What is your, let's talk about another injury was the broken arm. I thought it was a leg at first, but turned out to be a broken arm. Do you know when that might have happened? What the story?
It was a healing fracture. So a lot of things have been said that are just completely untrue, by the way. I think, I really want to use this podcast to actually talk about that. So
absolutely.
There was a healing fracture. And like I said, prior to, your question is that, Melissa had just gotten Mariah back from foster care. So how do you know that, Mariah didn't fall and injured herself and broke her arm while she was in foster care?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, in the CPS files, it says numerous times that while she's in foster care, she fell. She actually lost consciousness. It wasn't the first time. She would have a tendency to injure herself, and the foster parents had to watch out.
Yeah.
So she had to be monitored, especially around stairs. So did she hurt herself prior to this? Most probably it was a healing fracture. Second of all, they're talking about a bite mark, and that's actually, I think, some footage that I'm going to release, I think, tomorrow or during the weekend. And they're saying that they took a mold of Melissa's teeth, and that it basically matched the bite mark. I mean, that's not true. The forensic expert, Norman Jean Farley, actually told me, during her interview that she couldn't match it.
Couldn't match it. Okay.
She couldn't match it. And the other forensic expert actually tells me that wasn't a bite mark. That there were stripes, and that it was probably, due to a fall down the stairs, and it was just way too big, and nobody basically could open their mouth that wide, and that it wasn't a bite mark. And he basically showed me a PowerPoint presentation where he showed me how it could not have been a bite mark. So you have someone who basically says, oh, it's a bite mark. I couldn't, make it match with Melissa's mouth. And all of a sudden you have people saying, and Selena saying, oh, yeah, the bite mark matched my mother's mouth, my mother's teeth. I mean, it's just not true. And believe you me, if it matched, the DA, the DA's office, the prosecutors would have used it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't used during the trial because they could not make it match. So that's one thing. There's actually nothing. I also heard that, Melissa maybe had a ring, and we.
Oh, yeah, ring mark. Yes, that's right.
A ring mark. Yeah, there's a ring mark on Mariah. That's also completely untrue. That was never the case. Actually, there's nothing that links, Melissa to Mariah's injury whatsoever. Nothing. Zero. And, you can go on, you can just go back to the case. You will never find someone who can basically link it. Even the forensic expert at the time said to me on tape, they couldn't link it. So that's one thing. Okay. Then what else did I hear? That, she had some of her hair were pulled out.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That is also something that the other forensic expert says, that considering Mariah's age and the fact that, she was returned from foster care with teeth bites all over her body, by the way. Yeah. So that was something that she actually gotten before, and that, she had a squab, and it was most probably just a squab and not, so the DA's office, since there were no experts on the other side, on the defense side, the DA's office says all these terrible things.
Yeah.
And you have no expert on the other side who says, hey, by the way, wait a minute. You're saying this, but I'm saying this, right? That never happened.
So this was and it seems obviously
like everyone avoiding the fact that Mariah had cocaine in her system when her body was autopsied. No, so Mariah didn't have cocaine when her body was autopsied. Mariah had cocaine in her system when she was born.
When she was born, okay, not during the autopsy after the fact. No. After that, okay.
No. And that was the reason the fracture there. Yeah, was 7 weeks of healing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what the forensic expert is saying. The state's forensic expert. But, the other forensic expert that actually, looked at the case, he doesn't say that at all. So, all I'm saying is that, there's got to be the truth somewhere in the middle, but you cannot hear what the state is saying and basically say this is the truth.
Yeah. And like I told you the other day, I am for capital punishment. However, it's got to be, and I said this last night, it's got to be ironclad, 1,000%, no mistakes, no doubts at all whatsoever.
Well, then you're not for capital punishment, because that's rarely the case. Most people who are on death row are poor. Okay, you cannot be on death row unless you're poor. Let me explain to you why. You're on death row because you're offered a deal, and you have a court-appointed attorney who most of the time doesn't really know what he's doing. Okay, and you basically decide to go to court, and you're going to fight your case. I mean, that's the first big mistake Melissa did. Yeah. Had her attorney at the time been, truthful with her, he would have said, listen, there's a dead child, the jury's not going to like that. Usually when you go to trial, the statistics are that 95% of all cases are won by the state. 95.
95.
So your
Yeah.
chances of winning against the state are slim to none. And they have the best experts, and they have all the money in the world, and they have all the time in the world. Now, on the other side, when you have a court-appointed attorney, he has what? A tenth of that money? Not even? And, limited time. Most of the time, I mean, they're not the best, by all means, the best lawyers.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Gilman, it was his first capital case.
Yeah.
Okay. The second chair was a family law lawyer. He was someone who would, that you would use, when you get a divorce. He knew absolutely not what he was doing. It was his very, very first capital case as well. So you have two rookies, basically, defending Melissa. No experts, no medical, no forensic expert on her side. I mean, all I'm saying is, and I read what, one of your, I think it was Lou, or I don't know what her name was, that basically said, they're saying it was a healing fracture. Okay.
Yeah.
But I just want to understand why there's two forensic experts, exactly. Linda. The fracture they're referring to was within 5-7 weeks of healing. I just want to understand why there's two forensic experts who just really don't say the same thing at all about anything. Maybe there should be another forensic expert. The problem is that had she had a forensic expert on her side at the time of her trial, then the jurors would have been able to actually listen to that as well. They didn't. The forensic expert that, did the expertise was like 5 years later during one of Melissa's appeals. And he still states to this day that, what Norman Jean Farley, the forensic expert, said at the time is just completely untrue.
Yeah. Have you spoken to Melissa? When's the last time you actually spoke with her?
I visited her about, the last time I was in Texas, 2 weeks ago. I spent 4 hours with her. And she's very scared, she's scared, and she feels that she doesn't have enough time, and she never thought that actually that would happen. I never thought that would happen. And the thing that is very bizarre in her case is that there's so many other people on death row who are waiting for execution dates, right? And she got one before, everybody else, basically. I mean, they are so in a hurry to execute her. And it's just really, really weird if you think about it, because the victim's family is Melissa's family, right? The victim's family is basically her mother, who was Mariah's grandmother, her sisters, so Mariah's aunts, some of her children, Mariah's brothers and sisters. I mean, how would that, basically, how is that going to heal the family to execute Melissa? How is that going to bring justice? I mean, the thing that I want to say, and I think that's very, very, very important, okay? Reasonable doubt, okay? That's our justice system here. And, the Sixth Amendment, having a fair trial.
Yep.
Everybody's entitled to have a fair trial, okay? You don't have to be white and wealthy, you should not, have to be white and wealthy in order to have a fair trial. I mean, that's all I'm saying. And Melissa, I'm sorry. I mean, and nobody can argue with this, with me on this, is that Melissa did not have a fair trial. I mean, do you feel that she had a fair trial?
No, apparently no. And I can understand why certain people or a force would not want this overturned and say, oh, let's go back and look at everything that happened, starting with the attorneys and the DA or the wannabe DA at the time. And what are they going to find? Now that they're going to look at that over again, I think people don't want that uncovered.
Well, what they're going to find, so the current DA was actually a judge at the time, DA Sands. He was a judge, and he was the one who set Melissa's bond.
Which was?
$2 million.
$2 million, yeah.
For someone who could probably not even have afforded a bond for 2,000. But anyway, so that's the current DA. Melissa's court-appointed attorney works for the DA today, okay? And his wife, Irma Gilman, actually works for the judge who signed the order, the execution, date. So how is that not conflict of interest?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to tell me there's a Chinese wall, and that, oh yeah, they're not going to talk about the case. Every single one of these people, I just talked about, knew about Melissa's case. And Brownsville, I mean, I don't need to tell you, is a very small place. Everybody knows everybody. And the courthouse is tiny. So you're not going to tell me that they're not going to discuss the case. I mean, she's the only woman, she's the only Latina and woman, I think, sentenced to death in Brownsville out of Cameron County.
Yeah.
They're not going to discuss her case? Right. I mean, there's a huge conflict of interest. And all we're saying is that everybody's entitled to have a fair trial. Everybody's entitled to have their experts. Everybody's entitled to have mitigation. I mean, why would she not be entitled to that? Why? Why could she not defend herself when everything's gone so wrong?
Yeah.
Why? Because she's a woman, she had too many children, she had a drug problem, and she's Latino? I have a problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you can't watch this and not think, damn, that's right.
There's a problem.
There's a lot of, damn, that's right, kind of moments. And how can you sentence someone to death when there are so many, more than reasonable doubts? And something is definitely not fair with what's happening with all this.
No, it's not. I mean, she should have had a new trial. And plus, I mean, there's just so many things going on. I mean, so many things that were not shown during her trial. So many, let's talk about, all the medical evidence. I know the Innocence Project, is working on all that now. I mean, they're very famous for that. That's what they do, right? Yeah. But, I mean, there's just, there's something about junk science, I mean, there's a lot of things that, people didn't know in 2007 that we know today. Let's have experts look at it. That's all we're saying, give some time. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Like, can we put it back?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to go through some of these that I did not display.
It sounds like either they had something where the case was a slam dunk or they wanted her to be guilty, period. They had their mind made up. There's corruption everywhere. Melissa, why even have a trial? I mean, they decided she was guilty from the start. Yeah. And that's all, that's it. There was no justice there. It was just like, basically, that's it. We want her, gone. Let's get rid of her. Then the DA got reelected. Everybody's happy. And do we care? Do we care about her life? No. He said people confess under duress all the time. And that's true.
Yeah. Tell me about
all the time.
Your the page freemelissalucio.org.
Yes.
They've got a movement and they are trying to raise awareness, obviously first all over the state of Texas. And you're involved with them as well. You're a supporter of that and a speaker on that. Yeah.
Yes, and they've helped Melissa and they've helped, bring awareness to her case tremendously. And they help other, death row, offenders. And I mean, you were talking about the fact that you are for capital punishment. Um, I can't say that I am. I can't say anymore. I mean, for me, this film just completely changed my mind. I think that there are many cases. I mean, if it was equal, if it was fair, if we knew that the system worked really well, then, we could debate, but really, I mean.
Or what about some obvious cases where it's like, the last name Rubio decapitated his 3 children.
Exactly.
Police arrived on the scene. You got to come in. I did this. Arrest me now. I killed them. I cut their heads off. I mean, and now he's having evidence looked at, and they're opening that up again, it looks like. And that's just, and to me, that would be a case of clear, yes, he did it. It's obvious. Obviously, investigate. But to me, that's pretty clear. Unless there was something else going on.
No question.
Yeah.
Should he be executed? I'm against the death penalty altogether now. I mean, I don't think that it brings, it's no deterrent, and I don't think it brings peace to anybody. What is Linda Liu saying?
I thought the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court didn't. Yeah,
that she said that there's no reasonable, that she agrees that there's reasonable doubt in her case, but she doesn't think that she's innocent. I think I think there is enough reasonable doubt to stay the execution, but I personally do not believe she's innocent. That's fine.
Yeah, I would say guilty of, neglect and that kind of thing. Neglect, for sure.
There's no question that she was guilty of neglect.
Yeah.
Now, did she pay, she paid for that? I mean, 15 years of death row, which is basically being on, solitary confinement. I think, she's paid. And her family has paid as well. If we're going to talk about, the effect on the family. I mean, that family has been destroyed. That family went through hell and back.
Yeah.
So, yes. Now, it's fine.
This was from earlier. It's not from right now.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because she talks fast. She's making it seem like she was so innocent in all this. There was obviously abuse. Yeah, how do you know that? How do you know that? How would you know that there was, obviously abuse? Why? Because you see a child covered in bruises? I mean, have the experts talk about it. Have the experts talk about DIC. I mean, yes. I mean, she was covered in bruises. She had bruises underneath her feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, doesn't that, raise flags? I mean, how do you get that? You think someone abused her, like underneath her feet? Maybe she had something going on.
Yeah. And that, the doctor was at the end of the film.
Yes.
Talked about that. The head injury and then the bruising that happens. That's where you get all that spotted bruising everywhere.
All over the place.
Yeah.
That DIC. I know it's hard for people to actually get it, but that happens. Okay?
And that's what happens. A narrative gets put out there right away, and it's the first thing that people see, and it's hard to get to allow anything else to come in. You just think, oh, she did it. She killed her kid. And that's what I thought too. But you really have to open up, listen to everything.
She was never alone with Mariah, like the 4 to 5 days prior to her death. She's never alone. There's always like a couple of children with her. The story that she was always with Mariah is not true as well. I mean, actually, we have CPS records where there's some of CPS people going actually in the house and finding Mariah with the teenage daughters, and Melissa's not around. So that we know is not true. The only thing that they were able to actually say is that she was like alone with Mariah 45 minutes a day at some point. So you're going to tell me that she used those 45 minutes? All of a sudden, she's like completely calm. She's not, abusing the child. And then all of a sudden, for 45 minutes, she goes crazy. Yeah. I don't believe that.
Yeah, this comment was directed
Sounds
to.
like she is a selfish person.
This was back when we were talking about Selena. Talking about Selena.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, well,
And some of the comments.
I don't know what to say.
For me, speaks volume. This person's demeanor during the interview. Things just don't sit right in the case. Here, Monica believes that you are so one-sided. I mean,
Okay.
I think everything really speaks for itself. I think, yes, I was gung-ho at first.
Am I one-sided? Probably. I mean, probably if you had read, the amount of things that I had read on that side, on that case, you would be as well. I mean, one thing that I know for a fact is that the Innocence Project wouldn't go on a case unless, they're absolutely sure. And every single attorney who got on the case, aside from Peter Gilman, of course, was just completely convinced from the go. I haven't met anybody, whether it was the two investigative report, the two investigators in her case, for the defense, whether it was all the defense lawyers. I mean, just everybody that really investigated the case. I mean, they all agree. We all agree. Because again, you can't lie for all those years. I mean, Melissa would have had to be some kind of genius to find the time to, abuse Mariah without being seen by the others.
Yeah.
Without being seen by anybody. I mean, really, I don't really.
Yeah, I mean, if there was only one or two other children around.
Break in her leg, that was never treated either. That's not true. Mariah had no break in her leg.
There were no breaks, no leg fractures or anything like that at all that you've seen?
Absolutely not. I don't know what court transcripts you read, but I don't think that was in the court transcripts or no. No, that's not true.
Another comment from Tana. I saw a documentary.
Maybe it had been her sister's, but after reading the transcripts, I think very differently. Okay.
I don't know.
Again, you're reading transcripts from the trial, right? Where basically everything was against her. She had no defense. So what are you reading? You're reading, what the DA's office is saying? I mean, is that fair? Okay, so if she doesn't believe Melissa did it, then who did? It's not right for no one to answer for the murder of her or hurt of this child.
Yeah, we've covered that point pretty much.
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think we did cover that. I think we did.
I know the one question I had, how many, she had 14 children. How many different fathers were there? Was it just two?
I'm sorry?
How many different fathers were there to her kids?
There were 3 different dads. Yeah. Mariah's biological father has passed on. That's true. That's true. So there were 3 different fathers. The first father, he's the father of the 5 older kids, and then Robert Alvarez, I think, had 8 children. Yeah, and Mariah was from a different dad. Mariah, and it's true that he passed away. He actually passed away 48 hours after Mariah's.
Oh.
He was found dead in his trailer, and I actually, that's one of the things that I talked about with Melissa last time I visited her. She did tell me about Mariah's dad, that it was someone that she had really, really liked. That it was someone that it was a regret, that someone that, she regrets today, that, So it was also a surprise to hear that. I pray that she receives a new trial, that Alex, Marie, and Selena are supposed to testify. They are full of inconsistency and lie. Yeah, well, yeah, I pray that she receives a new trial too, and that, the truth goes out there, really. I mean, I think I think none of this is right, but at the same time, I feel I really do put the blame, on Cameron County and on the justice system and just the way that trial went on, because the entire mess that we're in right now would not be here if
Right.
justice had been served, and if she had had a fair trial.
If Gilman would have allowed
Daniela said she saw
testimony.
Alexandria banging Mariah's head on the ground. She did. And she actually stated that 3 times to me in 3 different interviews and in 2 different affidavits. And even during, I also found that Daniela had said that to Peter Gilman at the time. So, yeah, I mean, what happened? Why was that not investigated? I mean, all I'm saying is that all the things, should have been investigated. Sounds like a house of horror, very sad situation. Yeah, very sad situation. All the things should have been investigated and, brought at trial. I mean, I know that now, I mean, there's some jurors at the time that are watching the film. They're like, really? I wasn't made aware of this. I wasn't made aware of that. I wasn't, so the story is not as simple. It's not a simple story at all.
I feel like Mariah does deserve justice, and if her sibling did something, that person needs to be held as a human. And when we do wrong, we need to pay for what we did. Yeah, and at the time when she was so underage, I mean, if it happened,
so underage, she was 16.
Alexandra, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, she was 16 years old.
She was 16. Oh man, so they.
I mean, was she so underage? I mean, was she so young?
No, but by that meaning, if they would have found out, or this evidence would have came out, I mean, would they have tried to apply the same death penalty on Alexandra? For example.
Oh no, she would have never gotten that. I mean, she would have been, trial as a minor, and plus, I mean, it probably could have, I mean, it could have, been an accident, or it could have been, it was not probably something that she willingly wanted to do.
Yeah. Bruises on the bottom of her feet is from being hit with like a big spoon, I remember.
Where are you getting this? See, it's like this, there's always something new. Being hit with a big spoon. Wow.
Are you saying
That's
you were
nowhere? That's nowhere in the court records.
Were you hit with a big spoon? Is that what you're saying, or is that something you actually read? Yeah,
you remember. Well, I don't remember that. None of us do. But that's news. Thanks, Gene.
When it comes to a child dying, it's so easy to put the blinders on, only focus on the one everyone is blaming. But after hearing and watching both sides, it does bring doubt. And it certainly does. It certainly does. I think anyone who's condemned to death, like I said, better be freaking perfect. And this is not perfect. For sure, this is not perfect at all.
3 different fathers. Okay. But she could have gotten help at least. Okay. So was Melissa like a model citizen? I mean, the thing is, the fact that there were 3 different dads. I mean, first of all, I mean, we're in 2022, so okay. What does it have to do with the story? I mean, should Melissa be judged for what she represents, basically? Someone who had different boyfriends or husbands and too many children. I mean, she should not be on death row for what she represents. You understand? I mean, there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who are on death row who are flawed characters, who did not, of course, have a perfect life, and who had, most of them, if not all of them, had a, life of abuse. I mean, it's not like, you end up there just by accident. Okay. No. But what I'm saying is that, there should be justice, and she should not be judged for what she represents. You might think that, okay, she had too many children, and yes, she had a drug problem, but that doesn't make her a murderer. Okay. And so I think this is very important to separate. I know a lot of people are very conservative. I mean, especially, in Brownsville, in the area. And I understand that. I understand. But at the same time, I mean, that's not what she's accused of. That's not what she's accused of. And I think we need to concentrate on that. We need to concentrate on what is she accused of? Should she have brought her to the hospital? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying today.
Yeah.
She's saying that, I mean, that's her biggest regret. Her brother, I mean, her son, John, regrets not taking Mariah to the hospital. Everybody regrets it today. Was she negligent? Should she have been held accountable? Should she have served time? I'm not saying that she shouldn't. She's not saying that she shouldn't. That's actually the very first thing she said to me when I met her. She said, I deserve to be punished. I wasn't, I did not, protect Mariah. I should have brought her to the hospital. I should have done this, done that. Okay, but we're talking death row here.
Yeah.
We're talking about someone who is going to be executed in 50 days.
Yeah, and that time is quickly approaching, it seems. Melissa's home life is an issue, though. The issue at hand is a murder was committed. Yep, she's an adult regardless of her status and race. I'm just confused by what she represents.
Will should be accountable for her choices made. I'm misreading the censor. Okay, well, I guess what I want to say about that is that I've read some comments where people have said, "Oh well, it doesn't matter, if she did it or not. I mean, she didn't protect her daughter, or and if she knew that that another sibling was hitting Mariah, I mean, it's her fault anyway because as a mom, she's responsible."
Yeah.
And I completely, I see what people are saying, but at the same time, I completely disagree with that. And yes, I mean, she was an adult, but you accountable for your choices. I mean, if you're talking about someone who's accountable for her choices, I mean, this is Melissa. She's been sitting 15 years on death row. And she has an execution date where, that Rubio guy you just talked about doesn't even have an execution date yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
Talk about fairness.
She's been separated from every single one of her children, and her children, ended up, in foster care. So, if you're going to talk about the fact, has she been punished? Should she be, held accountable? I think she has. And this is no longer the issue. The issue is she needs a fair trial.
Yep.
And execution, like Linda is saying, is no answer. I just completely agree with what Linda is saying right now.
She needs a new trial, a fair trial. Execution is not the answer, especially here right now with so many holes in this story. Patricia says, I think you're very biased. I think both sides should be interviewed. An enormous amount of CPS reports, thousands of pages. The lady may not have been the model parent. She was a drug addict. She most definitely neglected her children. Yep, we just spoke on that.
Well, but then how am I biased, though? I mean, I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying that, she wasn't monitored by CPS or that she, did not have a drug history. I mean, nobody's saying that wasn't true, but does that make her a murderer? Again, is the question. Did she have a fair trial is the question,
Yeah, is
given to her. Well, I mean, right now we're just trying to save her from execution. I mean, if she dies, I mean, for sure she won't have a new trial, right? I mean, so right now the the urgency now is to stop the execution.
Yeah, only if they can find new evidence. Not just if they find it, but if they're willing to allow it. That's the real thing.
That's the real thing, exactly. Because, there's a lot of evidence being filed right now. There's a lot of things. Evidence, basically in this case, it's just everything I talked about, because none of that was presented at her trial.
Yeah.
So just there's just so much. I just want to know, are they going to stop it? Of course, now the story is getting national, and people are, quite frankly, outraged.
Yeah.
And nobody should be executed with that amount of holes in the story.
Yeah, if ever there was a call for should they get a new trial, this is the model for that. Like, yeah, look at this. It's blatant, Marie says, I do understand. Thanks for answering. I just didn't understand what you meant by what she represents. Gotcha.
No
Thank
problem.
you. So yeah, I as some of you know, there was a comment made in the that I posted about the freemelissalucio.org, and there was a misunderstanding as to what was expected and how I came off. So I made that correction. I do hope that they will eventually come out and talk to them. And part of their model, or not, I won't say model, but one of the things that they're calling for is people to watch the documentary, watch the movie. They keep saying, I see them signs everywhere, watch the movie. And I think that can bring all this to light. If you still haven't seen it, you can watch it on Hulu and anywhere else, on pretty much anywhere else online. You just have to type it up and it'll tell you where to find that. The documentary is called The State of Texas versus Melissa. And we were speaking today. I appreciate your time so much. I know you've done this. I can't even imagine how many times you've probably done this.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. Of course, I never expected that, that she would be given an execution date. Really, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when her case was reversed, which never happens. For a case to be reversed, like it was in the Fifth Circuit, I think the statistics are like 0.01%, of chances of case being reversed. And Melissa's case was reversed. And it was such a divided court. The state of Texas appealed it, and it was such a divided court that put her back where she's at.
Yeah.
That, I really thought, wow, they're not going to give her an execution date because, even the courts don't agree. Even the courts don't agree, but they did. And
because it said, you said it was a 10-7 vote.
Yes.
And those three just didn't vote. There was not no one way or the other.
Yeah, they said that because of ETPA, they could not, basically, say anything about it. That ETPA, which is basically what prevents, the U.S. Supreme Court to have anything to do with a case at a state level. So that's really extraordinary. It was a very, very, very divided court. And I know that there are a lot of people, in that decision that are not happy with what happened. And so, the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court did not hear her case, considering that they only hear 1% of all cases, that is not a shocker.
Yeah,
What's
right.
a shocker is that she's been given an execution date less than 90 days after, they refused to hear the case. What's the rush here?
Yeah.
Why so soon? Again, you're asking yourself, okay, why? Why her right now? That's all I'm saying.
Very shady what's going on with that. How much hope do you have for Melissa returning to a normal life? I would imagine you'd like to see her just you know what, this was all wrong, get her out of prison and let's start over again. Is that what you'd like to see?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to see that. I think that, she was negligent. She should have brought her to the hospital. She probably did not protect her like she should have. And she paid for that. Not only she paid for that, but her entire family paid for that. And the collateral damage to that family is going to be felt for generations and generations and generations.
Yeah.
And yes, I would very much like her to come home now. I think she's no danger to society. I think she's paid the price. I think this was a horrible accident. I think that she did not have a fair trial, and but what hopes do I have, considering that she's 50 days, from an execution date? That's a very, very hard question to ask me, because right now I just wish that she's not, I just hope that she's not going to be executed. And we're terrified. We're terrified about that.
Have you heard from the governor of Texas at all?
No,
Nothing at all.
nothing at all. Nothing at all. No.
Hey, John.
Oh, hi, John. Well, maybe you want to talk to John.
John, if you want to come on, I think Sabrina sent you the link if you want to.
Did I?
If you get it. Yeah, or did you not? You can send them that same one.
I'm trying to say or comment. It doesn't allow me to. Oh. How should I? What link should I send him?
Is the one that I sent you to click into this? It says StreamYard.
Okay. Hold on. This is great technology.
Right, isn't it?
Yeah. Let me send it to him right now.
Well, he's hopefully John. If you want to come on just for a bit,
I just sent it to you. If you want to come on, John.
Well, we're waiting for that to see if he's able to or wants to. You have any?
No, nobody has reached out. I mean, really. I mean, right now it's like the lawyers are filing, motions after motion, and everybody's, nobody's answering. Nobody's saying anything.
He's driving right now. He's not going to get on right now.
Oh,
he just said he's driving. Okay, that's understandable.
Well, you know what? You should come, another time.
Yeah, definitely. I'll get his contact
John is
information.
Melissa's biggest support. He's Melissa's son, and
And late. Let's see. I've tried right now, and before it's a long process. Still driving. Gotcha.
Well, John, you're always driving. I don't know what to tell you.
Do you have any plans for a follow-up documentary at some point in the future?
I have an enormous amount of footage. So, and when I see, all the questions that there are many questions, and it's true that I did not cover everything at all in my documentary. I only had, it's already an hour and 40 minutes. It was, pretty long. And part of me wants to do definitely a follow-up thing, that there's just at least, get, experts to talk about every single part of this case. Because when I see the confusion, and when I see the fact that, some people are going into, the trial, and trying to basically read everything that was said, and the fact that Melissa really did not have any defense. I mean, I think Peter Gilman never objected to anything.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, and people are reading that. I mean, this is really, it breaks my heart, really. I mean, nobody deserves that treatment.
Manny, would you consider interviewing Selena and Alex Marie? I've reached out to Selena.
I already interviewed them. I already did interview them.
Yeah, she has. Yeah. And I tried to get her on the program and talk to her, but she just, she acknowledged me, and she said, yes, contact me on Facebook. And I sent a message, and that message has still not been read yet. And so I try to catch her live on her TikTok, and I send her a message while she's live, and she looks at it, she acknowledges me, but then, so that door is open for them, of course. Whether or not they communicate that to me is a whole other story. Hello, let's see. Patricia Brother has reached out and TikTok. Yep, still haven't gotten a reply from them. And I gotcha, Patricia. You're good. Yeah, so let's see. See if this all gets back to Selena and company and family, and see if they're going to have a rebuttal to you or a response, or we can only go
Oh, I'm
by.
sure they will.
Yeah, we can only go
Sure
by
they
what
will.
she says on TikTok, right? That's all we have to go by. She really hasn't spoken to anybody.
I mean, she wanted the footage, and then when I release some footage, she's not happy with what I put out there. Um, you know,
My sister
my
Selena and
sisters,
Alexandra will
will
continue
continue
lying.
lying. Yeah, that's what they do. Unfortunately, that's what they do.
Yeah,
You know.
it's
And
what else?
again, it's not something that I'm just saying just because to take sides. It's just that when I interview people, and I do that for everybody, I try to see if their story is consistent. You know,
Yeah,
and it just wasn't.
somebody asked what is his stance, and he says very much contradiction on her TikToks. Yeah, and she was doing it for a while, and then she stopped and just kind of quit doing her thing online. And
Yeah, because she was getting also a lot of people telling her, I mean, basically pointing out at her, contradictions,
yes,
and she doesn't like that. She doesn't like that. Um, I just really don't understand, how you could be doing this. I mean, she knows better. She
well
knows the
the
truth.
the one TikTok I saw was her saying that somebody asked her blatant, just flat out, was your mom abusive? And she said yes. And then she said, do you want your mom to die in death row? And she said, no, I don't want my mom to die, but yes, she was abusive. And that's her latest thing.
Okay. But then what? What kind of abuse? The same abuse she stated to me that, her mom would pinch Mariah? I mean, is that abuse? I mean, just, I
Yeah,
don't understand. That's what I don't get, in Selena. She's saying abuse, but then after, when you're saying you're asking her how, she'd be like, she'd be put in the corner, she would be pinched,
right.
she'd be, asked to put a pillow over her head or something like that. I mean, that makes no sense. And then, she's going on TikTok all day long, and then she says, oh, but I don't want my mom to die. Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, you're sending a clear message here. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think she's a very disturbed person, really.
Yeah. So if you want more information, or if you want her to help in some way, you can go to freemelissalucio.org. And I'm hoping to reschedule with them and have them on the program. Also, they can state their case and what they're doing and who they're talking to and what kind of what their efforts are. And if anybody wants to help, I'm sure they will take as many warriors as they can to try and to help Melissa. I think the documentary has definitely opened up my eyes, and now I see things differently, along with all the other hundreds of videos that are out there, and a lot of them are clips from your movie that they're making separate videos of, and those are all over the place. And other people who do podcasts, they've got their own spin on things also. But I think it's pretty clear, and what's definitely clear is that a new trial is definitely in order for sure. Oh, I still got you there. Did I lose somebody? Sabrina, did I
Yeah,
still there? You
I
okay?
lost you
Okay,
for
there
two
you go.
seconds.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, we're all just asking, for her to.
I remember her saying something about
You
removing
there?
any free Melissa
Hello?
Lucio. Yeah, I got you here. Hang on. I think I lost Sabrina for a second here. Sabrina, are you still there? Can you hear me at all, Sabrina?
Yes, I can.
Okay, there you go.
I remember her saying something about removing any free Melissa Lucio signs if she saw them. I mean, you see, I mean, that is just so ridiculous. I
That's
don't
crazy. Yeah, it's
crazy.
John. I love my siblings, every single one of them, and them. Actually, Alexandra, Marie, and I were extremely close. But if you are right, you're right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Yeah, John, please get in touch. I would like to, you know, hear your thoughts on this if you're okay with that. No one deserves to die in the hands of man. I understand.
Yeah.
Yes, please for Melissa Lucy, they're not only executing her, they are executing us as well. Yeah, I mean
There's
that's
an enormous amount of suffering here, and I mean, at the same time, I mean, I feel for every single one of them. I think everybody is going through hell in this story,
yeah,
and it's not bringing. It's certainly not bringing justice. It's bringing a lot of despair, a lot of hurt. It's dividing the family even more. That that family's already been divided,
yeah,
and really, I mean, this just should be stopped. This should be stopped right now.
yeah. I can only imagine how taxing this is on the entire everyone involved. um, Prayers for the Lucio family. Sabrina, I want to thank you so much for taking some of your I will say precious time because I know you're a busy woman, and thank you for talking to us. I mean, everybody
It
had
was my
questions,
pleasure.
and
I mean, I hope that, I mean, even if we don't completely agree with everybody, I hope that, I gave you some answers and you get a clearer picture anyway. And
yeah,
thank you for having me.
absolutely. Here's John with one more. So about the signs, the day before we left on Texas media tour, it was very windy, so of course the signs are blown away. We have plenty of signs and more backup. Okay, so it wasn't necessarily people taking them down. The winds here are furious on those yard signs. They really are. Um, Sabrina, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and maybe at some point in the future we can revisit some of this or anything, any developments or things that come up.
Absolutely.
We would love to have you
Absolutely.
back on.
You're a great interviewer. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, this has become a very I went from one. We had elections here recently, and there was a focus on a person and another situation which I told you about, and then that person brought up all of a sudden became a free Melissa, um, but it wasn't sincere. It was for another motive, and now that the elections are over, there's not a peep about that situation. And that piqued my interest into what this should be talked about. Let's see where this stands right now. So um, yeah, definitely do appreciate you coming forward, and I look forward to talking to you again for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We'll get offline, but you stay here. Don't click anything yet. Everyone, thanks for hanging out with us. We were speaking with Sabrina Van Tassel. Is that how you say the name correctly? Right?
Yeah, Sabrina Van Tassel. Yeah.
And award-winning filmmaker. Her documentary is "The State of Texas versus Melissa." You can catch that on Hulu, and you can sign up for the free account. And whatever you're going to do, you can go to freemelissa.org.
Sign the petition.
Sign the petition. If this has moved you so much that now you can see things a little bit differently, that's all we want to do. I want to do is put it out there. You make up your own mind, but I think this is pretty clear. Sabrina, thank you so much. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. Here in Texas, it's only 2:00, and for you, I'm sure you're getting ready to wrap. Is it true out there where you're in? Are you in Paris or where in France
Yes.
are you?
Yes, in Paris.
People have dinner late. They don't go to bed till.
Oh yeah, late. Yeah. It's 9. Usually we don't have dinner before 9:30.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, everyone. Have a great night. And any more follow-ups on this, I'll post them as they come up.